Hello Internet, my name is Remy, and this video is my first attempt to discuss writing. This is very different than my normal videos. Not sure if there's interest in this. Don't worry, this is not a new direction for my channel. These are more bonuses, so just think of them as such. As you may or may not know, I too am an author. Some of the stories on here are my own. And writing is something that is very near and dear to me. I've been very lucky already in the time I've done this. I've gotten to talk with a lot of awesome authors and encourage and support. And I want to keep doing that. I feel like it's a worthwhile endeavor. I feel like there's a lot of authors out there who are scared to try. And this is sort of I guess you could say, a chronicle of my own journey in doing this. I actually just finished the first novel that I feel comfortable showing people. I finished one previously, but it's not fit for human consumption outside of the parts I read to my wife. In that vein, this is the first real book that I feel comfortable showing people. And I am in the editing process. And I started writing this last January, shortly before the world went to hell, and have continued until this January, where now I have a finished manuscript. I'm in the editing process. Like I said, I'm around 96,000 words. Not sure how long it'll end up being exactly, but I expect 90 to 100,000. For those of you who don't necessarily think in length of words, that's like 220 pages-ish, 230 or to 240, depending how it's formatted. That's my cat. She's in my lap. She decided that she likes my lap, but doesn't necessarily like me petting her, which, that's too bad. It's a package deal. So this isn't meant to be a victory lap. This isn't just me gloating that I've finished a manuscript, because I have so much more work to do on it. But also, it's more about the process that I've learned, and sort of just some hopeful nuggets of information that can help you on your own journey. Because while I've been doing this, I have consumed so many author articles, videos, books on how to write, what's the best ways to write, what are the correct habits to have, do this and you'll be a successful author, etc., etc. If you are interested in writing, you know exactly the kind of videos and articles and books that I am talking about. And I wanted to just take the time to discuss what I find helpful and what might help you to look for as you are engaging in your own writing journey. So, as sort of a preface to all of this, one of the things that I truly have found helpful was a book written by the author Nick Mamatas called Starve Better, which was a collection of articles on writing. I think you can get it for like $1 on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description. I think this is a great book. It's a pretty quick read, and it's definitely worth your time, especially if he's an author that you enjoy. And there's I don't know if it's really a metaphor, but there's a story in Starve Better about writing that connects to early 90s professional wrestling, something very near and dear to my own heart. And it's something that has really stuck with me above a lot of other writing advice. And in the early 90s, there was a villain in the WWF at the time named Yokozuna, who that is a character that hasn't aged particularly well. But for this story, suffice to say, he was fighting The Undertaker, a wrestler you may or may not be familiar with. If you are familiar with him, you know who he is. And if you aren't, he is a big, tall man who pretends to be, well, an Undertaker, complete with hat and leather jacket, etc. And he had to fight Yokozuna in a casket match. And if you are unfamiliar with the rules of a casket match, the way it works is you have to get your opponent into the casket and close the lid. And if you do that, you win. That's what it takes. There are no further rules sort of outside of that. And in this story, the author, Nick Mamatas, was watching this with a friend of his, and his friend sort of snarkily said, if there are no rules, why doesn't he just get a bunch of guys to help him get the Undertaker in the casket? At which point, pretty much the entire villain roster came out and did exactly that. They helped Yokozuna get the Undertaker into the casket so he could win the match, and more wrestling shenanigans could ensue. But this is all to say that there's no right way to win a casket match. No matter how you get the Undertaker in the casket, you win that match. And in the same vein, there's no correct way to be a writer. Anything that gets the Undertaker in the casket, anything that gets your book written, anything that gets your stories out there, that's the correct way to do it. Whatever works best for you is what you should do. And you're going to hear a lot of authors and a lot of different people tell you that you should hit this word count per day. You should make sure you write every day. You should do X, Y, and Z. And you should do that because if you don't, you're never going to be successful. And I think it's really easy to take those things to heart. And I think it's really easy to give them a sort of outsized place in your mind. Because quite frankly, it's just not true. So there are as many different ways to be an author as there are people trying to be one. So don't let advice that doesn't work for you distract you from your journey, frankly. And if you find advice that does work for you, great, incorporate that. Like, there is going to be advice that does and doesn't work. You're going to have to find out when's the best time for you to write. Is it early in the morning before work? Is it on lunch? Is it just stealing 15 minutes here and there to jot stuff down and maybe writing a bit more at the end of the day? Whichever you decide, as long as you're writing, that's really what matters. So don't get intimidated when people say, oh, you need to write 600 or 1650 words every day so you can have a manuscript in 30 days. Like, that sounds great. I think in an ideal world, or in a world where you're already at the caliber of a professional author, sure, you can shoot for those kinds of goals. And eventually I think you can kind of get there. I noticed the deeper I got into my own novel, the easier it became to write a few thousand words a day. And at first it could have been a struggle to get a couple hundred. Some days it was hard to get 50 to 200 words. But what I think is really important is you don't necessarily need to write every day, and you definitely shouldn't feel bad if you have to take a day off from writing. There's nothing wrong with that. You need to put your mental health first. You need to put your life first. Like, this is ultimately something you do for yourself, and it's for your own enjoyment and sense of self. But you have to make sure that your house is in order to really get the most out of doing this, I think. I think what's really important is, honestly, and this sounds so cheesy, is just to not give up on yourself. Uh, don't start beating yourself up because you skipped a day. Don't start backsliding and thinking that you're worthless because you could only get 50 words out. The truth is, if you're trying and if you're dedicating yourself to this over time, you will improve. And also, even trying separates you from the enormous class of people who just wish they could do it. You are taking the next steps beyond wishing. You are actually trying to make your dreams come true. And it sounds trite, but it's true. Like, you aren't just sitting around wishing this could happen. Even if you're taking baby steps to make this happen, you're still taking steps to try and reach what you want to do. And as easy as it can be to pick apart yourself and pick apart your writing, it's far easier just to not do it at all. And I would say that that's what ends up happening for most people. They get discouraged because they aren't immediately good at something, especially if you were a gifted kid growing up. I think that's incredibly common. And I think what maybe would make it easier, because I know failure is scary, is start small. I know it's very tempting to plot out 12 to 15 book epics in your head. I think it's very rare for authors not to fall prey to this kind of thing. Everybody wants to be Stephen King. Everyone wants to be able to have these sort of epic, sort of interwoven worlds. And that's great. You should aspire and want to make things that weren't there. That's sort of what's so great about being an author, is you get to create worlds. But it can also be really intimidating and feel really bad when the world you find in your head just doesn't translate to the page the way you want it to. So for that, I would say it's really best to start small. There's nothing wrong with a short story that's literally a couple of pages long. The first story I ever finished as an adult writer is one that is actually on the channel called A Scream in the Night. And this is a story that's very near and dear to me. The original draft of that story was, I think, only about 4 or 5 pages. The one on the channel is a revised and updated one that I think it's about 10, but still, even that's pretty short. So just getting something that's 4 or 5 pages done can feel tremendously good. Nothing is worse than just having Word doc after Word doc full of ideas and half-finished stories. Try and get a few things under your belt that are finished. Try and really commit to finishing stories. Try and make the scopes small. They can even potentially be little bits and pieces that connect to something greater. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. But it can be really a great boost of confidence to start small and kind of work your way up. That's definitely what I did. So The Scream in the Night was a few pages long. The story I did after that was like 15 pages, and I kept going up until eventually I wrote the first book that will be seen by no human eyes, which ended up being about 40,000 words. And now I am at a full blown novel that's like within spitting distance of 100,000. But that took a lot of time. That took like 4 years of sort of grinding and trying to figure out what worked best for me and sort of figuring out craft. And that's good, honestly. It's going to be a journey, but it's one that it's worth it. If it feels good, it's a worthwhile thing for you to do. And I really just don't want people to give up on themselves. That's one of the reasons I really love this 2 sentence horror thing that I've been doing. I really love being able to get people who maybe don't write normally or maybe have aspirations of writing, because anybody can write 2 sentences. Anybody can put together a 2 sentence story. And it's a great first step into doing something bigger if you want to do it. And even if you don't, you still have this little thing that you made. Like, it's fun. And I feel like there's so much stacked against you in this world that taking the joy in the small things that you can create and building skills to do more things that bring you joy is just truly invaluable. And if I want anything to sort of be the message of this series as I go through my sort of editing and publication journey and chronicle, I want it to be that. I want it to be trying to find joy and inspiration in the process itself, because it's very easy to become goal oriented. But the truth is, goals and the success derived from them can be very fleeting. Finishing your first book feels great, but it's just then you've checked off that box. It's more about a lifestyle. It's more about enjoying everything that goes along with it. And it's about taking on the next challenge, because now that you've gotten this under your belt, what's the next thing that you want to do? Makes you feel more capable. I know for myself that there are well over a dozen ideas for books that I would like to get to like during my life that I have every intention of doing. I know I have a pretty good idea what my next novel is going to be, but I have just so much work left on the one I'm working on now. And that's good. It's good to just enjoy these things as they happen. So I really want, if you take anything away from this, I want you to know that you are worthy, that you deserve to give yourself the time and understanding to become the writer that you want to be. Don't get discouraged by other people. Don't get discouraged by their success. Don't get discouraged by whatever meanness or pettiness they might throw your way. And I know that is far easier said than done, but comparison truly is the thief of joy. You have to do this stuff for yourself. And ideally, you'll find people along the way that you can share your hopes and dreams and aspirations with, that share similar hopes and dreams. And that's kind of what I think this is all about. Honestly, I really hope that somebody out there found this useful and it continues to light a fire under you to just keep trying, to not give up on yourself. Because it's really easy to do that. It's hard to keep going, but it's worth it. And just remember, you are worth it. You are. And on that note, I think that will be the conclusion of this sort of first writer chronicle video. If you would like to reach me directly, my Twitter is at Remy Militello. And I also recently created a subreddit called Remy Reads. If you would like to post any stories for me to narrate on the channel, that would be an excellent place to bring them to my attention. Other than that, just stay safe out there and keep creating. I know you will, and I know you can make something that you'll be proud of. Thank you for spending this time with me, and have a wonderful week.